Hey, thanks so much for finding the video. Do us a favor. If you haven't done so yet, please subscribe. Be sure to leave your comment. We love to interact. Enjoy the video. You did something pretty interesting. It's 50 NFL draft simulations to see who the Saints might take. Can you, very quickly explain how you came up with the simulations?
Yeah, look, I used a website that has a draft simulator. It's Pro Football Network. And what I did was I used the board, the big board that we have on The Athletic, which is made by our draft guru, Dane Brugler. And I basically would play GM at times or let the simulator play GM at times. So it's like a combination of each board. And so I just wanted to see what the trends were, where the board was going. And, of course, first round, you would point to defense. But what the most interesting part of it to me was that a lot of it never really pointed to a massive need that the Saints have, and that's at cornerback. And I don't think it's because they don't think it's a need. I think it's more about that they don't think that a player around there would be the best pick for the Saints at 28.
When I look at them, and I'm looking at it right now, Zaven Collins is the most mocked player in the simulator, the Saints 8 times. And then Jason Owe out of Penn State, an edge rusher, 7 times. And then running back Travis Etienne, an offensive player, 6 times. So what are you making of these simulators and why they keep spitting out these players? What's the idea behind these players ending up in New Orleans?
Well, personally, I love Zaven Collins. He's one of my draft crushes at this point. I usually probably get about 5 or 6 of them.
Like Kyle Trask?
I knew that one was coming. And no, he is not actually on my draft crush list, okay. Matthew.
Okay.
He still might be a franchise quarterback somewhere.
He'll never be a franchise quarterback anywhere ever.
He might be a quarterback on a franchise.
Now that is more likely.
That's how I'm going to win this one. That's how I'm going to win this bet. Spin it any way I can.
Semantics.
Exactly.
Right.
Just spin the words and it means differently. But no, look, I think, Zaven Collins, to me, he is a big athletic linebacker, and yet within the Saints, is he too big? You know, a lot of people kind of liken him to Dante Hightower, so much so where on Dane Brugler's latest mock draft, he had Zaven Collins going 15 to the Patriots because of the Hightower comparison and him being the top linebacker in the draft. But I think you also look at it in the sense that if an edge rusher's there and he's the best player probably around, the Saints could certainly take him. And I don't totally discount the ATN thing. And it's because last year they were really enamored with Jonathan Taylor and pondered him with their first-round pick at 24. So this year, I mean, yes, you have Alvin Kamara, but you basically have every other running back around for like one more year. And what if you bring in a younger player and say, all right, he can take over Latavius Murray's spot? Someone like ATN, someone like Najee Harris. Like I think running back is a position where if this guy can be a difference maker within the offense, that I don't think the Saints would pass on them, even if it's best case player for them at that point. I'm not going to totally discount it.
The one thing maybe a simulator can't do, though, Larry, is account for the people in the room. And what we know about Mickey Loomis and Sean Payton in this combination in their draft histories, they like to trade up. Is this a draft where you think that scenario is likely to unfold for New Orleans, where they might be eager to move up to get a player?
Well, let's see. They traded up from 27 to 20 to take Brandon Cooks. And then they moved up from 27 to 14 to take Marcus Davenport. Mm-hmm. So that would be a varying cost because you're going to pay more to move up to 14 than you would to 20. But would they want to do that? If they love that player and someone falls, I would not discount that either. And so, I'm basically going to spell out a couple of players that I'm going to write about and say these are the players I would draft. if I wanted to trade up. So I'm giving away free article that I've yet to even write one word about. But still,
I'll retweet you.
Yeah, attaboy. Players I would move up to draft would be, and these are massive moves. I would trade up for Patrick Surtain. I would trade up for J.C. Horn. I would trade up for Micah Parsons, because none of those guys are getting anywhere near you at 28. Okay. And so I love Parsons. I think he's the perfect linebacker for them that will come in, be middle linebacker. And I think those other two corners would start for you right away. Any other place would be, I think, a question mark. But you're having to trade up to 10, right. 11. I mean, that is a haul. So how much do you love those guys compared to losing assets? I mean, that is the question that only they can answer.
He's on Twitter at Larry Holder. You mentioned Dane Bugler's draft, and he had the Saints going defense and linebacker, as you mentioned, with Jamin Davis, the linebacker out of Kentucky. What are your thoughts if the Saints end up landing on Davis at 28?
I'm not in love with the pick, especially because in that draft, Caleb Farley went next at 29. So I would be willing to take a risk that Farley would be your cornerback, and I'm just not in love with Jamin Davis with the Saints there. Now, if he fell a million picks, I'd take him, but I would go a different direction. And yeah, I had a reaction piece to his mock draft, and look, he's not one. He's being the GM for every team in the league, right. So it's easy for me to say, well, that's not the Saints prototype, or well, that's not, so this, that, and the other. But still, he's looking at needs, and that's the thing. He had 3 linebackers come off the board. Maybe doesn't trust Farley, and so he went with the best linebacker available at that point in time.
Let me ask, just so mock draft aside, my feeling is the Saints have lost starters at every level of their defense. This is a draft where we're likely, I think we could agree, have 5 quarterbacks going round 1. And then there's going to be a handful of other offensive players: Devontae Smith, Jamar Chase, Kyle Pitts, Penei Sewell. So elite defensive players are going to slide because of the glut of offensive talent, particularly at quarterback and receiver in the top of round 1. I'm content to just say the Saints need a starter at every level of their defense. Just sit there at 28 and take the best defensive player on the board, and you have a day 1 starter. Is that an agreeable approach?
I don't know if they have 28 first-round grades on players, so that might not be an agreeable approach. But look, say someone like, and you might not say, well, defensive tackle, what if Christian Barmore falls? Mm-hmm. I mean, that would be someone I think they should consider drafting because they have a need at really, I'm not going to say both defensive tackle spots, but Onyemata doesn't play every down, and you don't have a nose that you feel great as a starter. So I think that's still a sneaky need. Edge rusher, I think there. But I don't think you have a legitimate – here's the thing. If you are having all these players and they fall, if they were that good, they're not elite defensive players. If they were elite, they'd be taken above some of these offensive players. So I think in that sense, you're not guaranteed that, but I do think that good defensive players will fall because there are so many good offensive players, and there's a lot of good offensive linemen. Obviously, we mentioned wide receiver. Quarterbacks are going to go, even maybe a running back or two. So, look, it's not that you can't find a good player. You're not going to find – I don't think you can find a surefire player at 28.
He's on Twitter at Larry Holder. I'm kind of going to disagree because I think you're going to have elite defensive players fall in this draft just because of all the glut of offense. But we'll see how that plays out. And it's always interesting with the Saints because you never know if they fall in love with a player. We know they're going to be aggressive and go get it. So what does their board look like? We'll wait until next Thursday to find out. Make sure you're reading his stuff on theathletic.com/New Orleans. Speaking of best versus best available sort of thing. You have a piece up right now about how often the Saints have drafted best versus best available. And you're working on something else you were telling me. Walk us through that a little bit and some of that history, if you would.
So everyone says, we always draft the best player available if you're a head coach or a GM in any draft slot in the history of the draft because you don't want to look like you're a fool. And so I went through at least the Saints history, and you just tease it. I'm going through the actual entire history in the Super Bowl era of how many times the player selected was actually the best player available. And I'm doing this basically how their career pans out.
Mm-hmm.
And for the Saints, I've only found 6 occasions in the history of the franchise where they actually took the best player available who turned out to be the best player.
Right. So with the benefit
NFL.
of hindsight.
Right, exactly. That's part of it. I'm not saying they were dumb at the time, but these players pan out.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because a lot of times undrafted players would have been the best player available, and they would knock out the entire draft. Someone like Warren Moon would knock out an entire draft because no one drafted him, and then he ended up being the best player in 1978 if someone would have drafted him. So I'll just rattle off the players for Saints' sake, and it goes Pat Swilling. It goes Ricky Jackson from 81. I know I just flipped years here for a second, but still, and then it would be 2 players in 06, Jari Evans and Marcus Colston, and then 2 players as of now in 2017 with Ryan Ramczyk and Alvin Kamara. And so, these are players that pan out. And of course, it's hindsight. You're not looking at positional need, this, that, and the other, but everyone always says best player available, best player on our board, this, that, and the other. So I decided to go see what I can actually unearth using a metric from Pro Football Reference. I'm sure there will be arguable players pegged as best player available in this latest piece, and I'm coming when I go league-wide. But for the Saints, I have 6.
All right, before you go, do the Saints take a quarterback in this draft? All joking aside, do the Saints take a quarterback in this draft?
I would say yes, but I wouldn't be shocked if they didn't, because if they don't love a quarterback, why take one? That's my thing. Don't take one just to take one. Take one if you really like the guy. So I'm going to say, again, yes, but I don't think they have to.
Who is it and at what point in the draft? Because I'm not talking about like Sean Canfield in round 7. I mean, are they actually going to take someone that they think they could mold like they did with Garrett Grayson?
They did not mold Garrett Grayson.
But that they think they did is my point. Right. No, but they took him in round 3 thinking, let's take a shot. Maybe you have something there that you could stash him for a year and see if it pans out.
Well, he played at Florida. His name's Kyle Trask. Let's go, Matt. Let's do it. Round 4. Let's go.
You know what, Larry? I'll even give you this. In round 4, I'd be okay with it.
That's where I'd be okay with it.
A day 3 flyer, if you check every other box in the first 2 days of the draft, I'm okay taking a flyer on a guy like Trask, or if it's Mike Detillier here has mentioned Ian Book with the last pick of round 3, likes his athleticism, maybe even kind of the Taysom Hill type role. I mean, I could be down with something like that as in a middle round pick. I'm okay with that. What I'm not okay with is drafting was what you wanted to do, which is draft that guy in the first round back in October. And I told you he was poo-poo, and you didn't want to hear nothing about it.
Here we go. All revisionist history. Just like the way you can spin this thing, like I say, if he's on a franchise after 3 years in the NFL, I win the bet. So you spin it this way today, I'll spin it this way 3 years from now.
For those that don't know, our bet, which we made, I believe, back in October, somewhere around there, was it's a fancy schmancy bottle of whiskey on whether or not Kyle Trask becomes a franchise quarterback within 3 years. And no, him being on a franchise doesn't count. By the way, he'll probably be playing for the Alliance of American Football or some crap like that in 3 years. So good luck with that, Holder.
We never even specified which league he'd be a franchise quarterback. So I think I'm going to win it on that, too.
I am absolutely going to consult the tape. See, the thing is, the great part about talk radio here, Larry, is that normally we just make all these predictions and no one ever holds us accountable. So it's just consequence-free, right? Say whatever you want. But everything is recorded. And so we will go back and consult the tape to exactly what you said. And I will throw that right back in your face, and you will be buying me delicious whiskey.
Well, last I checked, the old internet hangs on to news articles and columns and things too, readily available. So, exactly, franchise on a franchise. That's it. That's all I said. He'd be on a franchise.
That's not what you said at all, and we will consult the tape. All right, read his stuff at theathletic.com/New Orleans. He's on Twitter at Larry Holder. As always, we appreciate it. Thank you, Larry.
All right, Matthew. Good talking to you, bud.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.